G'day guys, today I'm going to go through how you can perform a fresh install of either the Stock OS or the custom Multicore OS for your SF2000. To do this, all you'll need is a micro SD card, a micro SD reader, and a Windows-based device with internet access. Let's get started. The first thing we need to do is download a program called Tadpole. So let's go to Google and we'll type in Tadpole space SF2000. And the first link should be Eric Goldstein's GitHub. Let's go to that. On the right hand side, go to releases. And we want the latest version, which is 1.3.3. If your micro SD card is 32 gig or smaller, that's all you'll need to download. If it's bigger than 32 gig, you'll also need a program that can format large SD cards as FAT32, something like Rufus. So let's quickly show you. Google, type in Rufus. And just download the portable version, which is 4.6p currently. And you'll only need that if you have a larger SD card as mentioned. Once it's finished downloading, we can close that off. Open up our downloads folder. Now we do want to insert our micro SD card into our micro SD reader and put that into the laptop. I'm just using a cheap USB 2 version here. And we want to format it as FAT32. Again, if it's less than 32 gig, you can just right click on it and go format. Make sure you select FAT32 and do a quick format. Leave everything else as the same. Just click start. And that's that done. If it is a larger SD card, then FAT32 won't show up as one of the options if you format it through Windows. So again, just open up the Rufus program we downloaded. Make sure your SD card's selected. And then where it says boot selection, click that and go non-bootable. You can remove the volume label if you want. And the file system is FAT32. And just click start and let it run. It'll only take a few seconds and you can close this off. So once you've formatted your SD card as FAT32, we want to run Tadpole. You'll notice at the bottom it does say no SF2000 drive detected, and under drive it's grayed out. Also consoles and OS are both grayed out. To fix this, we just go to File, Settings, select your own local directory, click yes. I'll make a new folder, just call it temp, click select folder. When it asks if you want to download the files, click no. I've noticed if you click yes, it either hangs or it crashes, so just click no, click OK, and click continue. This will let us use the OS and consoles menu. So from here, click OS, build fresh SD card, click OK. It will open up disk management. I don't recommend you use this if you're a beginner. It's very easy to wipe your boot partition or corrupt your Windows install. So when it opens, just close it off. Don't do anything and click yes. It'll detect your SD card, which for me is D drive. You can double check that. Let's go back to the computer, this PC. And yep, it's 32 gig card. It is D drive. Click yes. It'll download all of the files you need for a fresh install. So that's finished. We can safely eject the SD card. And I'll just unplug it, remove it from the reader. And I'll put it in the SF2000. I know it's hard to see. And we'll turn it on. And there is the stock welcome screen. And everything works. There are no ROMs on the fresh install, obviously. None of these shortcuts will work. And going to the menu, everything's empty. So if all you wanted to do is a fresh install, and you can stop here and you are good to go. You can put the SD card back in the computer and copy your ROMs over. I'll go over that a little bit later as well. If you did want to install the custom Multicore OS, then we'll turn it back off, remove the SD card, put it back into our SD card reader, and put that into the computer. We can click yes to say that we did test and it did work. It'll ask you if you have patched the bootloader. I have already patched it on this console, so I will click no. Under drive, we do want to select D drive, which is our micro SD card. So tap that. And this is now the SF2000 micro SD card. One more thing we can do is we can go File Settings, remove local directory from Tadpole, which just removes that temp folder from the drop down, since we don't need it anymore. To install Multicore, again, we'll just go OS, Firmware, and go down to Multicore Alpha, version 0.1. It should say update successfully downloaded, press OK, press OK again, and that's the Multicore installed. From here we can once again safely eject the SD card. Must just be finishing off, safely eject, there we go. So that pop-up was a good reason why you should always safely eject. It could still be writing files to it. So now that's ejected, just unplugging it, and once again putting it into the SF2000 and powering it on. As you can see, Multicore Alpha. And we are running the custom firmware. If I go to the user ROMs, you can see there's a bunch of games already there. Go to Wolf 3D just to test. All of these ROMs do come with Multicore by default. I didn't copy any of them to it. And there you go, Wolfenstein 3D. There is sound as well. And I died. So we'll power it off. I'll show you how you can add ROMs to this, how to use the custom cores, and how to add box art and change the shortcuts. Once again, just ejecting the SD card, putting it back into the micro SD card reader, and back into the computer. When you plug it in, Tadpole will auto-detect the SD card and select the correct drive. I'll start with how to use the custom cores. So if we open up our flash drive or our SD card, go to ROMs, you'll see there's a bunch of consoles here. So we just put the ROMs in the systems that we want to emulate. So for example, I have Space Invaders for WonderSwan. I'll just copy that. Go to the SD card, go to ROMs, go all the way down to WSwan, which is WonderSwan, paste it in that. There is one more step. Once you've copied all the ROMs you want, so the PC8800, you've got multiple NES emulators, MGBA, different Game Boy Advance emulators, different SNES emulators, Game Gear, all that fun stuff, Atari. Once you've done all the ROMs that you wanted, we'll go back to the root of the SD card, and there's a batch file called make ROM list. Double click that, and it will generate a bunch of ROMs. And you can see the very last one we generated was WonderSwan Space Invaders. Press any key to continue. We go back into ROMs, we go all the way down the bottom. You'll see there's lots of Game Boy Advance ROMs. These are just the custom cores injected into the Game Boy Advanced ROM container, so the SF2000 can actually boot them. So you can see Wolfenstein 3D's down there, and the very last one is our WonderSwan game. You can delete all of these GBA files, but as soon as you run the batch file make ROM list, it will generate them again. That is because all of the ROMs are in some of these folders. So I think there was one for Cave Story. Yeah. So if you delete all of these files here, it won't generate any Cave Story Game Boy Advance ROMs. If you go to the Wolfenstein folder, Wolf 3D, if you delete all of that, again, it won't generate the Game Boy Advanced ROM files. Next, we'll show you how to add ROMs to the official emulators, or the stock emulators. So back in Tadpole, on the top right, you can see console. FC is Famicom or Nintendo Entertainment System, SFC is Super Famicom or SNES, MD Mega Drive, Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, and Arcade. I'll select FC, which is just the NES emulator. I'll click Add ROMs, and I've got one, Mega Man. It'll ask me if I want to add thumbnails. For now, I'll click No, and there is our ROM there. For the thumbnails, there is an option under File. You go Settings. By default, it looks for thumbnails from your PC, but you can select download it over the internet. I haven't had any luck downloading over the internet. It usually just crashes Tadpole. I'm not too sure what's going wrong with that, or if it's just my computers. So I'll show you how to do it manually. Let's open up Chrome. And we'll type in libretro thumbnails. Now there's two different sites that you can get them from. If you just want to grab one or two at a time, go to the libretro or thumbnails.libretro.com and select the system. So I want Nintendo Entertainment System. You can either choose snapshots of the game or box arts. I prefer box art. Snapshot is just a random image from one of the levels or a part of the game. So go box arts. And these are all the images. I'll just Control F to search and type in Mega Man. I think I'll grab the USA box art. So if you click on it, it'll open it up. There it is there. Right click, save it. If you don't left click on the image here, you can right click on it instead and save as. Just to save a step. Go back into Tadpole. Where it says thumbnail, you can click view. Click on new image. And it should be under the downloads folder. There it is there. So there's the current image, which is blank, and our new one. Click overwrite. Click OK, it'll refresh it all. Under shortcut, we can select the slot we want it, so I'll go slot 1. And that's all we have to do for the thumbnail. I'm not too sure why it's not showing it. It might just need refreshing. Tadpole's not a perfect program. I will close it and reopen it and see if that helps. Didn't seem to have made a difference. We will safely eject the SD card once again, and we'll see if the thumbnail shows up on the SF2000, and also if our WonderSwan game works. So just removing it, putting it in the console, and turning it on. Once again, still multi-core. So it doesn't look like it updated the thumbnail, but the first ROM was Mega Man. So I'll just go quit out of that. So the box art's there, but it didn't like it on the home screen for some reason. We will plug it back into the laptop shortly and we'll try and sort out why that happened. It's the only time it's happened to me, first time it's happened. If we go down to the ROM section, press up just to save us scrolling all the way down, we should see WonderSwan Space Invaders. Click OK. I'll click start. As you can see, it is working. Save states do work in these custom cores as well. So if I close out of it, go back into it. Go to load, whoops. Go load. It does work. Pressing select on the WonderSwan emulator does change the orientation, because on a real WonderSwan, there was, it could be played vertical or horizontal depending on the game. So I'll just power it off and we'll put it back into the Windows computer and see what was wrong with the thumbnail. So I wasn't able to find out why the thumbnail wasn't showing in Tadpole. As mentioned, it's the first and only time it's happened. It could just be because there's not enough ROMs, but it was showing up on the game browser. As mentioned, there was another way to get the box art. If we go back to the Google search of libretro thumbnails, the second link is a GitHub page. Select the console you want. So for me it'll be NES. There it is there. On the top right, click code and download zip. It will download all the box art, snaps and titles for the console. Unfortunately, you cannot download just the box arts or the snaps or the titles. You have to download all three. Back in Tadpole, I will delete the Mega Man ROM. When adding ROMs, if it finds a matching image with the exact same ROM name, it will pair the two together and auto add it as a thumbnail. So if I go add ROMs, I go star, there is an image called Mega Man USA.png, and there is a ROM called Mega Man USA. So if I add the Mega Man USA ROM, it asks me if I want to add thumbnails. I'll click yes. I'll select the folder it's in, which is downloads for me. Click OK. And it should have already automatically added the thumbnail, which it did. So that's just an easy way to add bulk thumbnails. I believe libretro thumbnails uses the no intro naming scheme from the no intro ROMs. To add ROMs for different consoles, as mentioned, just select the console drop down and change to the console you want to add. So Game Boy, it'll refresh, you can add Game Boy ROMs. Go back to Famicom, which is NES, and it brings them up. I think that'll do it for today. If you have any questions or comments, let me know down below. Otherwise, thanks for watching.